What's up, everybody? It's LG Doucette here. You're listening to The First Mint, a podcast where I talk about NFTs and the world of Web3. The podcast comes out every Monday morning and occasionally on Wednesdays. If you like this content and you want some more, feel free to visit our Twitter page at The First Mint. I've said this many times on the show. I am not a smart man. And I don't mean that as in like I'm not, like I have a lack of intelligence or anything like that. I'm fine. But I mean in the way that sometimes I have a conversation with somebody and I think we're going to talk about the same topic, and we do, but the way they visualize it, the way they think about it is so far beyond the way that I think and process it. In a way that, like, in one sentence or in like one stream of thought, they articulate stuff that literally sums up what takes me like months to put together. And this pod, which I recorded last week, is that type of conversation. It's almost an entire hour of that type of conversation. The guest, the person I'm saying is smarter than I am, is Brenden Mulligan, who's created a tool called Premint, where NFT collectors, or rather NFT creators, can create an allow list to let certain people get permission to mint their NFTs before others. You've probably used it. Whitelist, allow list, Premint list, whatever it's called. This app called Premint became pretty much the main tool in the industry. A lot of the big names used it for their mints, including Moonbirds and Rug Radio, which you'll hear Brenden talk about on today's show. And beyond just being somebody who's created a really helpful app in the space, Brenden is like a tech, music, entertainment entrepreneur with experience way before the NFT space. We go a little deep into that on this pod. We talk about his history in the music app side. We talk about why MySpace failed as a tool. And we get really deep with bringing in the mass adoption. I challenge him. I ask him those questions, like what is going to bring those people in? And he gets so granular with his example that he literally gives an example where Dave Matthews Band fans will be able to go to Denny's because of their token authentication in the future. It gets real deep. This guy is a real founder. He is mission focused, and his mission in the space is to create fantastic tools for creators and also solve the problems of normal people trying to come into it. So listen to my conversation with Brenden Mulligan on The First Mint. Ladies and gentlemen of The First Mint, a very special treat for you today on this Monday. Brenden Mulligan, founder of Premint, a tool that you have undoubtedly used. I've used it many times. He's joining us on the show to talk about building and other great stuff that he's done. Brenden, what's going on, man? Are you doing all right in the bear market? I feel like you're cranking stuff out, but let's start with the emotional check-in. How are you feeling right now?
I've been doing crypto related stuff, whether it's been buying crypto or trying to sell crypto, whatever. I've been doing it since Coinbase was created. And
Right.
so I was just talking to someone this morning who was a little worried about their portfolio. I don't know what'll happen to NFTs because it's a new asset class, and I don't know what'll happen to specific tokens, but they're ups and downs, and we're just in like a little bit of a lull. And there's only all you can know is that there will be a non-lull in the future. You don't know what that's going to look like or how far away it is. So I've gotten so used to it, so I feel good. I mean, I think that when you're building in the space,
Mhm.
regardless if you're building software or like an actual project, like an NFT project, the building during exceptional hype has a lot of benefits, but also a lot of drawbacks. And there's a lot of noise. It's kind of nice for a little bit for things to be a little quiet. So I'm enjoying having a little bit of time just to focus in a little bit more.
That's interesting. Tell me, I mean, Brenden, tell me a little bit more about that, man, because we don't, outside of Premint, I don't know very much about you. We don't know each other personally at all. So I'd love to hear like a little bit more. You say you've been around for a while. Prior to Premint, what was your involvement in the space, and when did you get started?
Well, I mean, so when you Premint is sort of the merge of my interest in the crypto space and my interest in building software. And so on the software
Mhm.
side, I've been doing this for 15 years. I built a ton of tools for creators in the music industry and the podcasting industry and the app developer industry. I've worked at Google. I've done, venture funded startups, bootstrap startups. So I've been doing just like building things for a community for a very long period of time. And so gotten really used to and good at identifying areas where value can be created, putting something out there, quickly seeing if it actually was helpful, iterating it and moving it with the market, which has been really, really useful in a space that's only basically a year and a half old. Or at least, a lot of the attention is a year and a half old on the NFT space. So on that side, my background has been preparing me for lots of roller coaster in general.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the crypto side, I just have been sort of interested in the space enough to be a speculator when it comes to buying and selling stuff. Become exceptionally good in the 10-year history. I'm very, very good at buying when things are expensive and selling them when they're cheap. I'm potentially the worst investor of all time in general. And so but I've been interested in the technology in the space.
Right.
And unfortunately can't not emotionally react to things. So this has been a sweet spot for me. I've sort of stopped on I own some crypto, but it's really not something I ever think about anymore. I'm really more just interested in building for the creators in the space. And that has been way more rewarding personally and financially than trying to time the market or invest in crypto and not sell it when it tanks and all that stuff. So.
I really want to dive into that, and we're going to do a little bit later in terms of like your worst purchases, especially if there's some NFT related ones, because that is definitely some marks of street cred. But I do want to touch on something you just told us and give us a little bit of education. You said you worked in the music industry. Tell us about that. I want to hear a little bit more. Like you've been building tools for creators, all that. Tell us that story.
So early 2000s, I was in the more traditional music industry. I worked for some booking agency, a label, a management company. I basically dabbled in all aspects of the business side of music. Um, and eventually, in sort of the late 2000s, first decade of 2000s, I left the traditional space because I spent most of my time was taking advantage and exploring like the new digital side of music. So I started working for a record label at the time where iTunes started getting bigger. So it was sort of post Napster, but as iTunes was picking up and people were stopping buying albums, and they were buying singles. I exited the music business proper around the time Spotify and stuff got more popular so I didn't have to deal with like the music. I wasn't inside the industry when they were figuring out how streaming would affect them, but I was definitely there when like MySpace, Pure Volume, all these like new music sites were launching. And today it's hard to appreciate like how revolutionary that was because the web was relatively new on a consumer level, and just uploading like music to be played on the web. I mean, you had to deal with the uploading of the music. Where do you store it? Like an average musician, right? Someone who just knows how to play guitar and plays clubs, like they have to figure out file storage, they have to figure out website building, they have to figure out a media player that can play that file that doesn't require the user to. So when MySpace launched and you could just like put your music on it, it was mind blowing for musicians. Obviously, for anyone who was around, hugely successful at the time. Anyone who wasn't around, they've at least heard stories of this thing called MySpace that one day was relevant. But the relevance on the music side was like, holy, there was the whole like social network, which was obviously a big deal. But for the musicians, it was like the easiest way to build a website. And so, but there was that digital transformation. So I left the music industry to sort of focus on the fact that musicians were now able to put their stuff everywhere, but it was very inefficient to do that. And so I started building like data management tools. I mean, super boring stuff, but things that allowed the ethos of everything I've ever built for creators is the same, which is you're supposed to be writing music or producing a podcast or creating NFTs or talking to your fans or your listeners or your community. You shouldn't be dealing with like building a website, or you shouldn't be dealing with graphic design, right? And so for the music industry, it was all around like you shouldn't be sending your tour dates to every newspaper in every town you're going to be in, looking up what newspapers you should be in. You shouldn't be updating your MySpace and your Pure Volume and your Twitter and your Facebook page. Like it was like take all of that minutia away from creators so they can spend more time actually honing their craft and like producing wonderful things for the world. So that's been the theme through all these projects, but it started in music. And so I did a couple, for music, I did a data management one. We did a website platform. As MySpace imploded, everyone lost their website and didn't know what to do. So we built a website platform to make it really easy to bring all that stuff back online in a way that was somewhat decentralized in the sense that you built a website based off of inputs from all these other places on the web that you already put the data. So there was no like writing blog posts on the website that we gave them. You could just connect your Twitter or you could connect your
Right.
WordPress and it would automatically populate the page. So, but that, yeah, that was the music industry part.
Dude, shout out Pure Volume. I haven't heard that term. I haven't heard that name in a long time, but that definitely brings me back. And I remember being on MySpace in the early days and wondering, I was using it as a social network, but wondering when Facebook would eventually overtake it. Like, there was a clear race there, I think around like 2007, 2008, but then Facebook left it in the dust a little bit. So,
Yeah, yeah. I
yeah.
mean, it was more from MySpace's self-destruction. I mean, the biggest problem with MySpace,
Mm,
which was a great lesson for software developers, is
yeah.
they allowed for this ultimate customization, where you could make your MySpace
Mm,
page like with some CSS code, you could like move things
yeah.
around on the page, and so record labels would put a very large amount of money into getting designers and developers to build these MySpace pages to really be very custom, which was awesome. And it actually brought a lot of musicians to the platform because most creators want a lot of customization so they can have their brand come out in whatever platform you're giving them. The problem was MySpace was built on really crappy old code. And once they gave that customization to people,
Mm,
there was no way for them to ever make their product better because no matter what they
right.
did, it would drastically break the pages. And so
Yeah.
that killed them because it was a horrible
Mm,
platform and they couldn't improve it. And when they did improve it, they basically had to tell everyone you're going to have to redesign your pages. And at that point, everyone was like, "Well, I'll just go to Facebook or I'll go to somewhere else." So
yeah.
um, anyway,
Naturally.
it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. That makes sense. Tell me then, how do you like these are great lessons you learned from that time. And even that's like really good insight into MySpace because I was, your average consumer. And I was like, for me, like I was saying, it's like Facebook, I was like, this is a better place to do what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's actually really interesting insight. Like I never really thought of that. And that makes sense. That's now, we're almost 15 years ago from that. What with that same mindset, it seems like you're pretty dead set on coming in here, creating really easy tools for creators to come in and do stuff, which NFTs are a great place for that. What similar lessons do you think some platforms will learn sometime soon? Like what are some of the roadblocks that you're seeing for creators coming into the space? How are some of the platforms potentially shooting themselves in the foot with over customization, or is it totally different ballgame?
I think it's a different ball game. I think when you say creators coming into the space, it's so different because like an NFT like musicians generally, there was two kind of goals for the average musician. You either just wanted to play music and you wanted to be happy playing music, and when you released it, you wanted to make it easy for people to find, and you never expected a big fan base, but you enjoyed making it. And then there was
Right.
the other side that were like these people were businesses that wanted to become famous, and so it was a binary outcome. It was like they're
Mm,
signing record deals, sort of like when you raise venture capital as a startup. When you raise venture capital as a startup, you can't build a nice little business. You give that away, and your goal is to build $1 billion business, or you will have problems down the line. Or you can stay bootstrapped and just build a nice little business, and it's kind of nice. You have those two choices. As a musician, I feel like the binary outcome is pretty clear. It's like you're going to be a local great player and you're going to enjoy it, or you're going to be pro. Um,
mm,
I think in this space, it's a little harder because you've got so many different dynamics on like both sides of the market, right? You've got, the musicians had listeners. There was no one, music appreciators or people who were wanting to like follow a band, at least for the majority of time, did it because they love music. They liked going to shows or they liked listening to music at home. There was no financial outcome. But in
mm,
NFTs, it's like all over the place, right? Like there's plenty of people that say they buy NFTs because they love the art, but they're buying it as an investment. Or there are people who are like, we're not even paying attention to the art or even what the NFT is. We're looking at data, figuring out what's moving, flipping things. There's traders. So it's this weird mix of like art appreciation and investing. And so like the consumer side of the audience has so many different priorities. It's very hard to build for that. It's very hard to build for all of that. And then on the creator
mm,
side, it's the same thing. You've got like artists that are just like doing design work and they want to put, they did 50 one-of-ones and they just want to put them on OpenSea and they want to like sell the thing. And then on the other, then you've got people who are like, oh, I'm an artist and I want to do a collection. I want to do a generative piece. So there's just so many. So I think that one of the problems, the only thing I feel like I talk to startups in this space and give them advice on is more consistently is just like find a target market and know who you're building for. Because building for
mm,
NFT artists, there's very few opportunities in the flow where you could legitimately say like everyone can use this, right? Premint,
mhm.
I would say that a lot of people can use Premint, and that we're lucky in that sense because we're just sort of step zero. But like in most cases, if you're like helping people create contracts for their collection, you got to think about utility tokens. You have to think about generative art. You have to think about PFPs. You have to think about one of ones, and like then you have to think about additions. There's just, and if you try to do it all, if you want to release a program that's like the minting platform that anyone can use, it's just I feel like you're gonna have a hard time. Or if you're building like an NFT dashboard, and you want like, oh, we're going to
Yeah.
collect all the data from the blockchain. We're going to look at your collection.
Yeah.
We're going to tell you what to buy. We're going to tell you what's rare. Like, you need to figure out, are you building for traders who really care about floor price across marketplaces and want to think about arbitrage? Or are you building for someone who just wants to, like, they've always wanted a ringer and they just like, they're going to hold it forever. So how do you help them figure out how to get into that collection without, in a way that works for them,
What motivates that though, Brendan? Because my opinion there is like, and I agree with you. It's funny. I think you're the only guest who's brought this up without me asking them about it. It's just like whenever I see these platforms getting funded, that's like you can come here and we're going to be the main marketplace and also the launch platform and also dashboard for your NFTs. I'm like, no, like that's a huge like you're trying to be like the NFL and also the company that makes the footballs and the company that builds a stadium. Like it's not like just make one of those, right? And I feel the same way where I'm just like you're trying to swallow this whole thing and nobody's going to know. You're not going to be able to be the best at any of those things by doing that. It's really hard. Um,
Mm-hmm.
my question there is how does somebody who's looking to build, who has like a lot of different ideas, and whether they are people with a tech background like you, or even just myself, content creator, or even just like the average person who's like, I love NFTs, I have this totally different job that's not related to tech or crypto, but I would like to contribute. I have this great idea. It's a Premint style idea, or something that could really contribute. How do they filter that? Because I even find my personal process, Brendan, and I'm just like I start brainstorming, and I'm like, it's too many ideas. Like I'm way off in space. So I guess just give me some personal advice. That's what I'm asking for.
Well, I mean, I think that, this isn't even just related to NFTs, but in general, it's like, I think it's very helpful to know who your target market is, right?
Mm.
And like moving this out of NFTs, like built a couple years ago and it still runs a podcast website platform. And it just helps podcasters spin up a website, stays up to date automatically. Now, when I launched that, I was very clear that there's certain podcasters that have hit escape velocity, that have like tons of sponsors. They've really built a large business. They should hire designers and developers and to build them a website. They should instrument their website very, meticulously to make sure they understand conversions and listening. But like 95% of podcasters don't need that. And then maybe one day they
Mm.
do, and we can help them graduate off and go and get something better. But if I would have tried to start that with like, I want to service both, I would have had to
Mm.
think of all the easy podcast creation stuff. I would then have had to think of like deep analytics. I would have had to think of deep customization. I would have to think of monetization networks, like, and it would have been too much. So I just was like, all right, I gotta like take part of this market. And I think in NFTs, someone was pitching me a platform they were building the other day, and it was kind of like, imagine like uh, OpenSea's like collection pages and profile pages, you know, cranked up to 11. It was awesome. It was gorgeous. It had all this rich data on it. It was
Mm.
showing you blended floor prices. It was so cool. And they gave me this whole pitch, and I was like, this is gorgeous. Best website I've ever seen. Who's it for? And they're like, well, everyone. And I was like, well, like,
Yeah.
I don't care about blended floor prices, and I'm like fairly active, but I'm not a flipper. Like I never sell anything in the NFT side, or I don't buy something with the intention of selling it. So like, and so there's just this. There's really data heavy that I don't want to see, but like the people who do care about blended floor prices, this is probably way too pretty. Like they want to look at like a data dashboard. And so I really always go back to like, what's the problem? And I asked them, I felt so bad asking this question after their presentation because it felt insulting, and they had built software before. And I was like, I think this product is amazing. I think it's really beautiful. They've been working on it for like
Yeah.
5 months. And I was like, I don't understand what problem you're solving or who you're solving it for. And to me, those are the only two. That's the questions you should start with before you build anything. And so anyway, you look at Facebook. I think a lot of people look at Facebook today and say like,
Yeah.
oh, they do local sales. There's a million features. And the only area I disagree with you is I think maybe someone will be able to own the whole NFT landscape. but they're not going to start with the whole NFT landscape. They're going to
Yeah.
start with, and full disclosure, like it would be unlikely that we wouldn't start helping creators in other ways besides that pre-mint process. And so like,
Right.
but it would have been really hard if we were like, we're going to be a pre-mint, we're going to be a minting platform, we're going to be
Exactly.
a collector dashboard, we're going to do all this stuff. What we're trying to do is like, my question is always, all right, minting is something we don't have any involvement with. I've never wanted to have money flowing through pre-mint. It's too much to handle, in my opinion. It's easier to not to do that unless you really want to focus on that. But I'm like, and I don't really want to write contracts or being responsible for contracts. But we started thinking like, all right, well, by not being a part of that, we are making collectors potentially vulnerable to like having to bounce over to a minting site that they've never been to and they could get rubbed. So if we helped the minting process, we could actually keep people safe. That's a problem worth solving. As we've looked down that road, the first question is, how do we do this in the easiest way possible? Which would be sort of, don't even deal with the contracts, just like be able to, people could bring their own contract. So it's like, we don't need, so anyway, I think you just have to really be like crisp on, okay, what's the problem that we are uniquely able to solve, and what's the best, easiest way to solve that right now? So.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and like you're saying with Facebook, it's like it didn't start with marketplace and all the other stuff you can do now. It started as like just see who's your friends, or if you watch the movie, who's single.
Yeah.
Right. Started as a really basic use case, and then now it's if I need a new lawnmower, that's where I go.
Yeah,
exactly. Like it has utility, but I don't care if it's single anymore.
Well, and just to jump off your lawnmower comment, last thing I'll say is I think the other thing that you have to do well, which I feel like we've done fairly well with like introducing the collabs feature, like with the expansion we've done, is like you have to kind of watch the market and how it's moving and make sure that you're still relevant. And like I think that Facebook was able to jump in and start selling lawnmowers because of the scale and because of their network, but also because Craigslist like just decided to stop innovating like 15 years ago. It's an amazing business, and they still are like for head person per revenue dollar. I think they're one of the most successful businesses of our time, but they just kind of chose like, we're going to do what we're not going to try to like follow the market. We're just going to be us. And I think that worked for them for a very long amount of time. But I think Facebook is like destroying them right now because Facebook came in and was like, okay, what are the problems with Craigslist? Trust, the organization of data. Sure, Facebook's prettier, but like it's way easier to find stuff on Facebook. You can have it shipped to you. It's like combines Craigslist plus, and it's just so much better.
It has location data as well, so it'll tell you like if it's not in your town, it's nearby or whatever.
Yeah.
I will say, shout out Craigslist again. I love that we're talking how many websites we're talking about that are 20 years old. Because it's like shout out Craigslist for being like such an OG internet thing. It's so simple. I still love that. I still love the simplicity of Craigslist. Brings me back to internet in the 90s, right? Or just that's what websites were.
And I feel like they probably just got over like, they're like, we're successful enough, which is also respectable.
Yeah, not everybody wants to take over the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and I think they could have innovated slightly to give themselves a better position against Facebook, but whatever. They're still probably making a massive amount of money. Go ahead.
I have no doubt. No, I wanted to ask you based on this, from a building perspective, and also this is a consumer question as well. Looking ahead, how do we navigate like what the current trends are versus what might happen, right? Because something like NFTs, it's like even when I started in the space like 2 years ago, and it was like there was like nothing. There was some stuff, but it was like, okay, you can buy some sandbox land. Top Shot had just started. There's a few other random things. There's no PFPs. That wasn't even a term. There was like the people that have punks as their thing. Then there's Avastars trying to recreate the same thing with like a generative model, and that's it. Like there's nobody else has funny. Like everybody still has their normal profile photos of like themselves or their dog or whatever. And Apes came out, and I talk about this all the time in podcast. I was like, that's terrible. Like, that's really, what about it? That's such a weird thing that's happening right now. I don't think it's going to last, and they've been proven incredibly wrong. How do people, not just builders, but also collectors, how do people kind of stay ahead of the game? You know what I mean? Because we don't know what's good. We don't know what the meta is going to be in a year or two in terms of like what's cool in NFTs, or if there's going to be some new thing that comes along that nukes NFTs. You timed something incredibly well with Premint, where it's like, hey, everyone's doing all these whitelists, allow lists. It's a dangerous game. It's super annoying. People have Google Forms and all these different pencil mechanics, and then you came in with like easy site, simple. Should people? I guess it's a convoluted question, but like, should people be building like, hey, I think people need this right now, or should they be like, I think people will need this later? How do you
Yeah, I
balance
think it's
that?
a hard question because different people have different motivations. I mean, I think um, as an investor, I would probably always advise to not try to time the market, right? It's like whatever the phrase is. What's important is that you're in the market, not that you're time the market. Whether it's crypto or real estate or whatever. So with that logic, I think that trying to have the crystal ball and be like, well, people are going to need this in 6 months, so I should start building it now. Is tough because there's a chance that so much could happen in that 6 months, especially in the NFT market. In the NFT market,
Mhm.
most likely what's going to happen is it's just going to completely change, and that thing is no longer relevant.
Yeah.
Um, the the other thing that could happen is someone who had the same insight but had a bigger team or more experience or more money or whatever can build it in 1 month as opposed to 6 months, right? So it's always been hard for me to say people are going to need this in a long time. I'm going to build it now. I have the experience and the sort of the skill set where I can generally get something from idea to shift into the market in a very short period of time. And so I tend to be more of the people need this now, and it's not like something they'll only need this week. Like
Mm.
it's sort of, I think the best kind of products is you see something brewing and you can start addressing that need very quickly to see if the thing that's brewing is worthwhile. Like Premint's
Mm.
actually funny. So um, I can't remember the exact dates, but I think I launched it around October 1st last year. It's not even a year old. I think the first code commit was around then, or maybe I think the first code commit was September 30th, and then it was launched October 14th, something like that. I can't remember. Nobody used it. I mean, it was built really for one person. It was Pindar Van Arman, who does Bitgans, and he started using Google Forms. And I built it because I watched what he was doing and I talked to him about it. So he used it, and so I had my one customer that I built it for, and great. And it just was out there as a free tool, um, very rarely used, and that was it for most of the year. And like at the end of the year, a few big artists found it. We had an X copy launch. Farouk used it for Rogue Radio, and um, it started picking up steam very, very quickly. But like, if you would have asked me in December, I would have been like, "Yeah, Premium was a cool idea, but it's not going to be a good business. It's not going to, some people will use
Hmm.
it." And so like it took a while for it to even like people, it seems like, I mean, even the fact that it's only a year old, like a lot of people
Yeah.
would be like, oh my God, that's like a pretty big success story with given how big it is. It's only been out for a year. But like those first few months, it seemed like a total failure. And
Hmm.
even this year, it really started picking up like March, April. It started, you could see the momentum building.
Yeah.
So, but I looked at it and I said, all right, there's clearly people, whenever I see people building like homegrown solutions and like stitching things together, I think that's where you see
Yes.
a lot of opportunity, right? If you see someone building like, this isn't as relevant anymore, at least in NFTs, but if you see someone building like crazy Zapier models of like, oh, when this happens, then trigger this, and then this happens, you're like, oh, maybe I could build like a really useful email marketing tool that's automated because you see enough people trying to automate something, you're like, oh, maybe I can just build the tool that kind of connects the dots. Um,
Hmm.
Anyway, long. It's not a convoluted question, but sort of a convoluted answer. Where I think it's in the middle. Like I don't think you should build something that if you're going to build something that is needed today, I think that's really nice. But I think that you just need to
Hmm.
make sure that it has a chance to be needed later. So
Right. Yeah, no, it was a convoluted question, so it's okay if you give a long answer like that. It's totally fine with me. How does real quick like deeper question about Premint? Is there do you are you guys do you mind me asking like do you guys monetize yet? Or do you guys make money in Premint? I feel like I've just signed up, but I don't think I guess do the creators pay a fee when they're using you? I'm not too familiar there.
yeah, the so the revenue model. So at first it was free. It was all free because it wasn't really a thing that I thought
Yep.
was going to be successful. Um, And then after I think it was maybe it was Xcopy for Rogue. At a certain point, like projects that were big enough started using it where the site was going down because I didn't have infrastructure. And so I was like, well, I'm going to
Mhm.
have to start building infrastructure for this. I'm going to have to spend more time on this. So I need to start charging. So I sold as an experiment. I sold a creator NFT on OpenSea's contract. It was like, hey, buy this, come to the
Mhm.
site, activate it. It will give you access to the premium features, and that allowed me to monetize a little bit. And I thought I literally like I think I put 10 of them up on OpenSea, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll sell these 10.
Mhm.
They sold. It kept going. We ended up like I kind of moved the prices up because I didn't really think about pricing when I did it, and then Eventually moved off OpenSea, and we have our own contract. So we have a creator NFT that's an unlimited NFT that is sort of, you burn it when you activate it. So it's not like a resellable NFT. It doesn't have any secondary
Mm.
value. That existed through like February or March, and that was it. And then what happened was the collector base started getting much bigger, right? People like you came and
Mm.
signed up on these lists, and I didn't build anything. Like there was no, once you sign up on a list, there was no like next button to do anything. It
Right.
was literally close the browser tab. There was no back home button. There was no link on the page. So all these collectors were like, well, I signed up for all these premints, but I don't even remember what I signed up for. And so I started looking into building like a collector dashboard. And so we started building that. And then in April launched a collector pass NFT. There was a 10,000 edition, or 10,000, it was not an edition, but there's 10,000 Creator Pass NFTs. They were launched on April 1st. They were sold through just a standard minting process. And owning one of those gets you access to the collector side of the product. And so, and that you get, you can see your history, you can see which ones you've won, which ones you've lost. You get mint reminders. There's a calendar feature. We're going to be releasing a dashboard where it'll tell you, like, based on your collection, here are the pre-mint lists that you qualify for, and all that stuff. So that sort of allows us to build up that collector side of the house. So that's how we do the revenue model at this point. It's those two sides.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And cool and great for you at iterating. Tell us a little bit more. So I just want to dive into that story, and kind of maybe you can bring us up to where you're at right now with Premint, because something I'm very keen to know. So you launched a product, nobody's using it. Then to me, you became one of the premier tools. I was just like, this makes so much sense. The past makes sense. This is like, I had on a list of like, this is the kind of stuff we need to be building right now to kind of solve these problems for us. So kudos to you, Brenden. I think you saved a lot of people a lot of trouble. So thank you. First of all, where are you guys at now? Like what else have you learned along that journey in the last 10 months or 11 months? And kind of where are you taking it from here?
On the collector side, that launched as this big experiment. The messaging was you get access to this collector dashboard, but at the time, all these collections were doing special drops for people, and so we were like, we've done a lot of experiments on that side, and sort of reaffirmed our role as like, we're going to keep building out great technology as a collector dashboard, but
Right.
we don't have a Discord as an example. That was from the beginning. I was like, I don't want a Discord. Like, you're in enough Discords. The whole goal of this is software. But of course, we looked into the Discord thing. We sort of tried to test our
Yeah.
assumptions over the last, but we kind of are refocusing back on making that dashboard better. And I think there's a lot of cool stuff that we're going to be adding. Now, you'll notice I'm not saying we're building a trading dashboard. So like, we're not going to be
Mm.
building like crazy charts and stuff like that.
Mm.
It's going to be more about like, the ethos is more, you have this collection, what should it be getting you? And then also, of course, like your pre-mint stuff, like what have you signed up for? What have you won? So on the collector side, there's that. On the creator side, it's been interesting right now. I think you can't respond too quickly to a market conditions changing, because right now we're very clearly in a lull. When we launched Premint, the demand was way higher than the supply. And so Premint was used as a way to take a large group of people and whittle them down into a small group that could mint. And that's how, you avoided gas wars. There was also a significantly smaller number of projects. So less projects. I guess there was technically a lower number of collectors, but there was just a lot more demand for fewer projects. Now there's less demand in general. People are sort of sitting on the sidelines. You've got way more projects launching, not only from artists, but you've got all the celebrities and brands stepping in the space. And so a lot of people now sort of have turned to use Premint as a way to gather an audience as opposed to whittle down an audience.
Right.
I think there's validity to that, but it's breaking some of the core assumptions of the product, which is like, it's all about winning a spot. There's only a certain number of spots. So what we're seeing now, unfortunately, is like a lot of people over allocating. So, the winners show up to mint and it's sold out. And it's because they picked 30,000 winners for 10,000 spots. So then we go to the creator and we say, you shouldn't have done that. And they're like, well, no one's showing up to mint anymore, right? Like if we only pick 10,000 winners for 10,000 spots, it's more likely that there'll be less momentum during the mint. People won't mint, and so
It's like airlines overselling a flight a little bit. It's just we don't know. Well, not the same, but it's like it's similar, right? Where they're just like, we don't know, we want to fill this.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, and from the beginning, even X copies drop in the beginning of this year. They picked 200 winners for 200 spots of a grifter. Grifters were already trading at 10 ETH, and they were being sold for 0.25 ETH. So if you won that, you basically made 10 ETH. And this was back when ETH was more than it is now.
Yeah.
they still only had like 175 people show up to mint. Like you'll never
Hmm.
get 100% mint from your winners. Moonbirds was another one. Moonbirds, I think, had like 85%, maybe 90% show up to
Right.
mint. Winners.
Interesting.
So we introduced this model where you could add a wait list where you say like, cool, you should never have more winners than your supply. But then after that period, you release it to a wait list, which is a constrained list, and this still solves gas wars and keeps bots out. And that worked for a while but again, as the
Hmm.
demand has gone down, like what people are seeing is like, oh, if we don't over allocate our mint, we might not sell it. If we don't sell out, it's bad for everyone. Anyway, point being, it's a totally different dynamic and it's the same tool. And so we're starting to look at how do we adjust the tool to meet this new dynamic. And so that part of it is being more transparent with the collectors of like, hey, you're signing up for a list or you won a spot, but it is a first come, first served spot. You have a better chance of getting it. But like, and then and then on the other side, like, well, if people are coming to collect an audience on Premint, right, the
Hmm.
dynamic is being set up to put a link out there, have a huge audience come in and whittle them down. But if they're looking to find collectors, maybe we can do a better job there. And so we're starting to think a little bit more about, um, again, like a pre-mint is the goal is pre-mint, like helping you before the mint happens. It's not necessarily, we didn't call it
Hmm.
allow list. And
Yeah.
so what are other dynamics of the pre-mint process that aren't necessarily building an allow list? And so starting to look at that. And then, like I told you, I do think that if we were to help control the minting part of the process, or at least give people the option, we could protect against scams and stuff like that. Right now, we can't really say a project is certified or anything because we don't
Right.
own the contract. So we're looking at that.
Yeah.
And then the third piece is once you've minted, what happens? And most of what happens is in Discord. And so we recently bought a company called Vulcan, which is sort of a
Hmm.
Discord management software. And so
Right.
they have the ability to verify roles without having to connect wallets. They have a reCAPTCHA that keeps bots
Hmm.
out. They have sales bots that helps you report your sales to your secondary sales to your community. We're building a giveaway bot that is sort of Premint plus Vulcan inside Discord. So you won't even need to go to Premint anymore. You can just click an emoji,
Hmm.
but it'll be more efficient than some of the other stuff that's out there. So we're thinking a lot about that like post mint world, but that's kind of in the solely separate product called Vulcan. So
Right. Right. Is there an irony there that it's just like you bought like a Discord bot company, but you don't have a Discord for pre-mint?
well, we have a Premint creator Discord, so we do have that. So we get to
Oh, okay.
dog food it a
Okay.
little
Okay.
bit
Okay.
there, but we don't
Got
have
it.
the
Okay. Yeah, that
community
makes sense. Yeah.
Discord. But like
If you, yeah.
basically what we did is we sat down and we said, there's so much security issues with our industry, and if we don't fix these
Yeah.
security issues, the other people are never going to come in and join this industry because it's too scary. And
Hmm.
every attack vector I saw, whether it's phishing scams, hacks, rug pulls, like fake mints, all ends with the same thing: people getting sent to a link and being asked to set access for all, like open
Hmm.
their access to their product, and or set approval for all.
Yeah.
And so that is the vector that, I mean, we're not going to build a wallet, but I think the wallet, I've talked to MetaMask, I'm talking openly about the fact I think MetaMask should introduce better UI to warn people. But like
Hmm.
generally, we bought Vulcan because we think it is the safest way to protect people from scams, right? Like
Right.
if you never, right now, when you go into like Zenika's Discord, and if you own a Premint, or if you have his token and you've ever used Premint before, when you say verify me and get access to the channels, we will look at the Premint database that you're in and we'll say, oh, well, this Discord user has this wallet has the Zeneca pass. Cool, you're good. You click one button and that's it. If you use some of these other
Hmm.
providers, you're like leaving Discord, going to a website,
Hmm.
connecting your
Hmm.
wallet. I mean, it's so so the Vulcan acquisition was more about like some of the stuff we're doing on the security side of the industry. But I think there's a lot we can do there.
Where are you at, Brendan, on the scale of mass adoption? Because this is actually a curious question for you because it's like I love what you're saying about like building these tools, making it really simple for the people running the Discord, for the creators, and also keeping it really safe for the consumers. Where like what is your current opinion on whether the current NFT meta can scale to more people. Like some of the stuff we cover at First Mint, like we're covering, some of the Dapper stuff where they've on Flow, they've got Ticketmaster or they've got some kind of Ticketmaster deal out there that they're rolling out for NFL games this year. Obviously, with hopefully some kind of future integration for those tokens for new people getting them who haven't gone there yet. Obviously, we're probably not quite ready for millions of new people to show up tomorrow, especially ones who aren't savvy in the tools. But where are you on that scale? Like where are you at in terms of pushing that and getting new people in the space?
I think that I think that we'll end up with NFTs being a sort of an underlayer of a lot of interfaces and experiences for normal people, but without them ever knowing that they're trading NFTs. And I honestly, I hate talking about news that I haven't read, but and just talking all based off headlines. It's probably one of the worst things you can ever do. But I saw a lot of headlines this morning around Starbucks getting into NFTs,
That's
and
right.
from my headline reading and my tweet reading, my gut opinion of it is what they're doing is they're going to essentially like use the NFT, specifically Polygon. They're going to use the NFT sort of back end to power some kind of a collectible reward system, but the end user will just be interacting with credit cards. And so I
Sick.
think that I I can, and then I guess they'll be like the wallet holders. Like you want to maybe I don't know how the actual NFT ownership works, but I think it's more likely that that's how normals will get into it than like they're
Mm-hmm.
going to download MetaMask.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one avenue that a lot of consumers will start using NFTs without really knowing they're using NFTs. I think concert ticketing is the greatest of all examples. When I'm trying to win people over who are like NFTs are dumb, I talk about, well, what if tickets were NFTs? What if artists could make part of the scalping revenue? What if
Yeah.
what if when you bought a ticket you would 100% know that it was a real ticket? All that stuff, and they're like, oh, I totally get it now. So,
Yeah.
so
Dude, or even
I
better, if
see.
you had the tickets from the shows you went to 20 years ago,
Yep. Yeah.
you know what I mean? And
Exactly.
you could go connect with other, uh,
Other people. The other,
freaking whatever, whatever you liked
I've
then.
been
Yeah.
using this as an example recently of like I always use it because aging myself, but Dave Matthews did like an amazing fan club. I had never joined it,
Mm.
but when he was like when people used to follow, I mean, get people still follow him around, but I think this is like a 20-year-old thing. I think it was called the Warehouse, and he had a fan club that you could join, and you got like early access to tickets and stuff like that.
Mm.
He built this platform himself, but like what I tell people now is like, well, you didn't know who was in the warehouse or not. I mean, maybe they could like print off a membership card with a barcode or something, but like, but
Right.
what's so cool, I think, about NFTs and this concept of like being part of a community and it being public is that it's amazing that Premint can exist, right? Someone can come on Premint who has nothing to do with CryptoPunks, can't afford a
Mm.
CryptoPunk, but can set up a
Mm.
list that only CryptoPunk people can join. That's a
Mm.
pretty amazing thing. Like, and so the idea
Yeah.
of giving benefits to community members without actually having to do a deal with that community. So I always talk about there was a big concert a couple years ago, pre-COVID, around where I live, and there's a Denny's right next door. And so the people around here, when I explain it, I'm like, and Dave Matthews actually played. So I was like, imagine if Denny's could have been running a promotion for anyone who is a Dave Matthews album holder or fan club holder or just was going to the show. They could run that and they could verify that people.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, and they're like, well, they could do that today. It's like they couldn't verify. They could run like a weekend deal, but like they couldn't say, hey, you love Mumford and Sons, we're going to give you like the moons over my hammy or whatever the hell their dishes are. But like you couldn't.
Grand Slamwich.
Yeah,
The
the Grand
Grand Slam. So
Sandwich.
I'm a huge
Yeah.
Denny's person, just so you
Oh,
know.
you are.
Secretly, nobody knows that.
I
I'm in
haven't. I
Canada, so
haven't.
there's very few Denny's. It's just one of the. I just think it's hilarious, and I like eating there.
Funny. I haven't
Continue.
been in a long time, but like, um, yeah, I think that that's going to be a big deal, and there's just stuff you can do that is going to be. So I think that that's how normals will end up getting into it. I also think
Yeah.
that I think when it comes to like wallets, it's just I mean, Coinbase makes sense to a lot of people because it's an account. You just have an account with Coinbase. I mean, they can say it's your wallet, but you just have a Coinbase account and people can send money into it.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. That's what you do with Chase or Bank of America or whatever. People get that. When it comes to like a MetaMask wallet, like with your own keys and stuff, I think freaks people out. I personally feel safer that my assets are in Chase than they're like
Mm-hmm.
on my ledger. And if I lose this piece of paper or lose all that, it's like it's too much for me. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
Premint's treasury is held in a bank because it's a business, and I'm like, I can't lose that
You
and then
can't
not be able
lose
to
the
pay people.
money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, if there's like a revolution and the government locks down funds. So anyway, where I was going with that
Yeah,
is,
but everyone else, the rest of the system's gonna be screwed anyways if that happens. It's not gonna be
yeah,
nobody else is gonna be able to pay people. So
yeah. So
it's
I
fine.
think there's some space between a MetaMask wallet with 20 words or however many 24 words that you have to keep on a piece of paper and
Right.
Coinbase. And I think that's probably looks something like
Mm.
Apple or Google embedding wallets into their operating systems that somehow you have control. There is custody a little bit about access, but it's not.
Right.
There's just some middle ground where it's like if I lose this piece of paper, I can get Apple. My Apple ID will help me get it back or something. Versus like Yeah, anyway, I think that that's in the middle, and
Yeah,
we might see more things like that. Like your Apple, I don't know if you're an Apple user, but they have like Apple
yeah.
Cash, which is like a wallet in the wallet, and like there's no account number there, but people use it, and I can see something like that sort of being. Um, I can see a
I
middle
don't know
ground
if we
there.
have that. I don't think we're allowed to have that in Canada.
Hmm. You're
Maybe
not
we are.
missing,
We're not allowed to have Venmo.
yeah, you're not missing
So
much. But the cool thing is like you get a phone and you just have a wallet that someone can, because they have your
yeah,
phone number, they can just send you $5 and like.
yeah, we don't have
So I
that.
think that there's going to be an
Unfortunately.
onboarding of crypto people that is similar to that, where you don't have to download an app or set up an account, and if you lose your phone, you can get your money back, like something.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Brendan, like what I love what you're saying about like Denny's, and I was reading a lot actually about Starbucks this morning. And basically like they're gonna like gamify it. They're gonna be like, okay, if you go and this week you buy like an espresso and a pumpkin spice latte and the brownie or something like that, then those things get you like a badge or a new NFT. People, I've said for a long time, and Reddit is probably the best example. This is like people love fake internet points. People love fake internet badges, fake trophies, any of that kind of stuff. And NFTs kind of take that next step. It's just like, hey, those trophies are like real things that you can like sell to other people once you've achieved them. That's like such a, creating that value. But from a larger standpoint, like, you're plugged into the creator side, but I find, Brendan, even just through talking to you, that you are also quite plugged in, or quite, you have a lot of empathy for how normal people feel as well. In the space, in the NFT space, what do people actually want? Like in terms of the people that are currently here, we've talked about the new people who might come in, buy macchiatos, whatever. The people that are here right now, we're still here at bear market. Like the people that are here, what are we chasing? Are we all here for profit, or what do we want?
Well, I think this is where this is where I go back to like there's no one answer because everyone's here for different reasons. I mean, I know people who
Mm,
buy NFTs very specifically to hold to give to their children, and they're not bullshitting. They're legitimately like, I think we're in the beginning stages of a huge movement of art, and if I could have owned the first oil painting, that's probably going to be something that's valuable, and I wouldn't try to
mm,
sell that 2 months later when the market went
yeah.
up. And so it's like they see some of these early NFTs as potentially priceless goods that they can pass on to future
Mm,
generations. And so for them, they might be here to try to get a deal on something. They're trying to buy something low, but there's no calculus on when they'd sell it. And they're here. The things that they buy, maybe they're buying as investments, but they're very strongly buying as like they just want to own this piece of art because they love it, or they have the story of the artist is great or whatever.
mm,
That's a totally different person. And that person today, every one of the people that I know that fits that user profile is not sad right now. If anything, they're happy because they have some capital they can deploy and get some assets that they weren't planning on being able to get because they thought they'd already gotten sort of out of price range. The people I know who are in it to like flip and trade are very not, I would say devastated. I'm not necessarily part of their mental world, but I would say that they're panicked. And so I see a lot of the Premint collectors, for example, who bought the Premint pass to get an edge because they saw Moonbirds launch on Premint and they saw VFriends launch on Premint. They saw Xcopy launch. They're like, oh, this will get me an edge on those. They're sort of like pissed right now. Like, why aren't there more great projects? Like, as if Premint's the one creating the blue chips.
yeah.
It's not even just like, hey, this project is launching and you don't have any spots for me. It's literally like, you need to be launching better projects on Premint so I can make money. I'm not making money with this pass. I'm like, well, first, like, it's not supposed to, the pass is not ever going guaranteed to something that you can make money from. That's not
No.
why
Yeah.
you should buy it. But second, like, we don't create the projects. Like, if there's no good projects in them out there, there's going to be, it'd be like going to, the movie theater and bitching that there's no good movies out. It's like the movie theater just plays the movies. And so I think that there's a lot of people who like got into this market because of all the hype, and they bought a bunch of stuff because they were told NFTs were just going up and to the right. And then since they did that, they've been sliding, and now they're panicking because they're just like, well, I lost a bunch of money. Now I need to make it back. And like the way you make money back, at least traditionally in crypto, is right now you deploy some capital, you sit quietly, and
Sit. Yeah.
you typically want to deploy capital into like projects that are, and this is the hardest part about NFTs, is like in crypto during the downtimes, the best thing to buy. I mean, there's probably financially like you could buy some random altcoins, but if you were just going to go out and be like, I just want to make money off crypto, buy Bitcoin and buy Ethereum. You can buy pretty much anything that it will probably go up, but like those things will probably go up and be part of the next bull. Where if you bought like a weird altcoin There's plenty of altcoins that just no one ever cared about during the next bull,
Mhm.
and so they never got more valuable. If anything,
Mhm.
the next bull proved that they were useless, and then they completely went to zero. And I think NFTs are harder because it's hard to say like right now, just go and buy some blue chips because it's very hard to afford an ape or a squiggle or a lot of these. But those are probably going to come back and do well. I don't know if I won't name any specific communities, but there's certain communities that are down, and I'm like, I couldn't guarantee those are going to come back. So unless you love that art, like,
Yeah.
um, I don't know.
Yeah. Unless
So
you're really into it. Yeah.
that's the thing. I think that generally like people now, uh, typically with these cycles, and this even happens with startups when Silicon Valley gets super bubbly. It's like there's the hype. There's a lot of people that come in that just are there to make money, and there's some people there who are there because they love building. And when the
Hmm.
crash happens, it actually flushes all the people out who are just there to make money. And so I think that right now people are having to decide whether they're done with NFTs because it's just not a good use of their time. And the people that are left building are like super excited about this time. So
Yeah. Uh, Great answer. Question for you on the business side. You're saying people are pitching you these days. Do you invest in businesses or are you looking for more stuff to acquire? And also, what are people pitching?
um,
What's some stuff that people are like? I mean, genres. Like, don't give us the
mhm.
company details, but I mean, like, what's the kind of stuff that people are trying to build right now?
um, I occasionally do some investments if it's just absolutely clear that it would be something I want to invest in. I think I thought a lot about building a Premint fund and just funding smaller projects. And I would love to do it, but it's a lot of work to meet with companies, right? Like if you're a good
Yeah.
investor, you meet with 40 or 50 companies, you invest in one of them. And I don't have any time right now. So the idea
Yeah.
of like so it's kind of like something has to fall into my lap and get an introduction through someone I care about. This is the worst thing to say as an investor, but like I need to see other people that I respect also investing. Most people are like, you should have your own conviction, but like I don't have time to have my own like dig into everything.
Yeah.
So I very rarely invest. But I do try to offer my time to companies that are just like getting started, trying to figure out issues and try. Like I've seen whether it's through software or through Premint, I kind of seen around a lot of corners, and so I always see like this happened to Utes. I forget they had some issue with their mint the other day, and I forget. Well, I remember looking it up and being like, oh yeah, I would have predicted that was going to happen because like all the dynamics were there for whatever it was, and like
Hmm.
um, when like even when Yuga did the other side mint and like $100 million in gas was lost. It was like, well, of course, that was never not going to happen. Why wouldn't like we shouldn't be pissed about it now,
It
like that it
sucked.
happened. We should have been like
Yeah.
pissed that they weren't doing anything to prevent that, right? Like
Yeah.
so. Those are two kind of extreme examples, but like in a lot of startup that pitched me the other day, like talking about like if you release this, most likely what will happen is you'll get a little bit of buzz. It's going to make you feel really nice because you'll have Twitter will be excited about this. People will use it for a few days, and then no one will ever use it again. And so like, but because they haven't built in any sort of marketing besides like a launch plan and some influencers to tweet about it. And there's no,
Mhm.
Premint worked because when a creator uses Premint, the collectors see Premint. Some of those collectors are also creators. Those collectors that then turn and use Premint for their project, and it's just like a nice little feedback loop.
Mhm.
Um, so anyway, point is, that's why you tend to hear about a bunch of pitches because people introduce
Right.
people to me so I can like help them figure that out. What I'm seeing is nothing surprising. It's
Mm.
more and more dashboards, alpha dashboards, which I think have been played out at this point. There's a lot of great tools out there, but I think what happens, and this is someone sort of encapsulated this well for me, is like awesome tool is built, people use it for a few months, new tool is built with some little different feature that gives everyone an edge, then everyone moves over to that one and just dumps this one. And then
Mhm.
they do it again. And at the end, if the
Mhm.
tool is good, everyone moves to it. And then that tool eventually expires and then people move to another one. So, but I'm seeing more of those kind of tools out. And I think there's value there, but especially for collectors, not traders. But the traders tend to like move from, and the traders are the one who's going to pay for it. So people come to
Right.
me like, oh, we're going to sell access to this for zero point 0.1 ETH a month. And it's like, it's going to be really hard to build a big business off of that because it
Yeah.
might be good for 3 or 4 months, but then they're gone.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
Minting platforms are very, very continually popular. I think people are trying to like, everyone's trying to solve the, hey, I want to release an NFT, but I have no experience. So what's the turnkey? What's the Shopify for minting? I think
Yeah.
there's like some really good people out there working on it. I just think and they're all monetizing similar ways. They're like, we're not going to charge a flat fee. We're going to charge a percentage of primary, and the big money is going to be in a percentage of secondary. And now they're all like,
Right.
oh wait, secondary royalties are drying up because marketplaces aren't enforcing royalty rules. Okay, well, and so I just worry that's going to be a little bit of a race to the bottom, because I'm already
Right.
seeing like minting platforms being like, well, we're just going to be free because we want to own the relationship. And like, so I see a lot of minting platforms. Some interesting like developer tools around like, how do you make it easy for people to spin up their own marketplaces? How do you decentralize decentralized marketplaces? I think that's kind of interesting. But ultimately, like, I'm kind of a curmudgeon old person who kind of believes that OpenSea is in a really good spot, as much as people don't like it. Like, the average consumer likes to go to one website and buy things, not like buy things from 50 different websites. I like when I
Couldn't
go
agree
to
more.
like a brand and I can see they're using Shopify because I trust the infrastructure. I don't really like
Yeah.
buying off of a site where I'm entering a credit card and not knowing if it's a secure form. Like,
Yeah.
so, anyway, there's nothing that I've seen that is like, whoa, that's a totally new thing. And I actually think that's okay, because I think we're in a space where a lot of people build products because the technology allows them to, not because there's a
Mhm.
user need for it. And so people come to me like, oh, I've built this great split payment system where you can have your money sent to like 6 wallets, and then you can do this. And I'm like, well, who's going to use it? And they're like, well, I think it'd be really useful for X, Y, and Z. I was like, yeah, but do they need this? Like, have you talked to them? And they're
Yeah.
like, no. Um,
Got
so
a
a lot of
solution
people are
without a
building,
problem.
yeah, they're doing that because the tech has like opened up all these possibilities. For every 50 or 100 of those built, someone stumbles on $1 billion business. So I think it's like,
Something
it's
that's
cool
going
to
to
see
work.
people doing it. Yeah.
Brendan, if I put you in charge of like the biggest fund in crypto, like you're now in charge of A16Z's like monster fund, all the funds they've deployed or whatever giant VC, what's the first thing you're building or investing in?
I don't know. I mean, I think if you look for trend, VCs typically look for trends. And again, I've sort of talked about how I'm not the 10-year in advance person.
All right,
But
forget
I
the
think
VC
that,
part. Just like you have an unlimited funds, you can build something that's going to be really useful, or how are you define like good in the space? What do you
yeah,
go and make?
I mean, it's a hard question because I mean, I wouldn't be working on Premint if I thought there was something better to be working on.
That's fair.
Right. So I think that, I think where areas that we can do better, I think right now we're seeing this issue of the supply and demand flipping, and how do we make it easier for both sides to get what they want, which is, how
Mhm.
do we make it easier for creators to find customers, and how do we make it better for customers to find projects and things they want to buy for whatever reason they want to buy them, right? Pleasing traders is very hard, but they're always going to be there. But so how do we, I don't know if the allow list is going to be a forever dynamic of our industry, but I do know in every industry, in any commerce in the history of the world, finding your customers, finding a group of people to buy the thing you want to sell is a pretty important part of your process. And so I see Premint's like depth there getting a little bit deeper. We do
Mhm.
no on-chain analysis of who the collectors are who sign up. We do no uh, analysis of the projects. If you were wanting to start a sneaker NFT, it would be awesome if you could come to Premium and be like, "Hey, I've got 10,000 of these I want to sell. Find me the best collectors who would be interested." And we could do it in a way that would be both satisfying for you and you get your customers, not overwhelming for our collectors that are just going to be inundated with nonstop offers for. So I still think there's a lot to be done there.
Mm.
And then for me, like, if I had unlimited funds that I could just deploy, it would be more of a charitable aspect of like, how do we keep people safe? Because we need to make the
Right.
industry safer. Like, there's a lot of areas for people to get scammed, and the more and more that happens,
Mhm.
the slower this industry is going to take. So that is where, I mean, we're spending a lot of money and time and people on security stuff that is not, I mean, it's somewhat directly tied to us, but a lot of it is like not going to help the Premint product, but it'll help the industry in general. So we're going to be releasing a lot of like the security stuff we're doing, for other people to use, and I think it'll be helpful for the
Awesome.
industry.
Awesome, man. Well, that's some great thoughts. We're at the end of the time, Brendan, and there's one thing that happens at the end of the show. It just takes a second. Is we play a game, and the game is Would You Rather. Okay. You know how this game works. To give you two options, you tell me which one you would prefer. Okay. I only have two questions for you. These are all hypothetical, of course. Uh, You get 2 phone calls from 2 different old platforms, and you must bring them into Web3. Would you rather the platform be MySpace or Napster?
Napster, I think. Do you want to give you the why?
Yeah, absolutely. If you'd like to,
Yeah,
share.
okay. I didn't know if this was a. I've done some podcast interviews where like, all right, at the end we're going to do some quick questions, and there's
No,
no
no, it's not
explanation.
rapid
So
fire. No, I want the weirdest reason why. Absolutely.
no, I mean, I wouldn't. I think it's actually more simple. It's like Napster was decentralized from the beginning, and so I
Mm-hmm.
think that it would make a lot more sense. And Napster wasn't an interface. Napster was more of like a protocol, and so bringing a Napster in, I think, would just fundamentally make more sense than MySpace, which is just an old platform, or even Facebook, right? If you were to say, like, when I think of MySpace, I don't think of like I think of the MySpace website in the same way. If you said Facebook, I think the Facebook website, and like both of those, like I'd
Mm-hmm.
rather be talking to Napster about ways that we could use that tech in Web3.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Great answer. Second question, only other one. Would you rather nobody ever used Premint? Never, it's done incredibly well, but nope, nobody needed it. You have to move on. You have to build something else, or you have to eat at Denny's for a month, every meal.
Oh, I totally eat at Denny's for a month every meal. That's an easy one.
We're definitely gonna be
Yeah,
friends, man.
yeah.
That's the
No,
right
I've got no
answer.
problem. It's funny. I've been one of the reasons I haven't been to Denny's in a long time is because my wife has this. She grew up in the South with like Waffle House, and she has a
Oh,
fundamental opposition to Denny's, and
oh,
so it's not that big of a deal, but it has become such a running joke in our relationship that now it's like a
right.
big deal. Where she's like,
Yeah.
"No, I'm never going to eat at Denny's," and so now it's like it's almost like a. So, but no, I'd be fine going. No, that's an easy one.
Your example of uh, people going to the Dave Matthews Band concert and they get to go to eat at Denny's beforehand or whatever is like that is my new leading example for most unlikely combination of brands is
It
that
would be
for
unlikely.
the utility.
But think about, I mean, just think about like, and this is going to exist where you're going to open up your wallet. There's going to be a benefits tab in the same way you open up like your bank account. And it's like, we've got coupons for you. And you go to the
Oh yeah,
benefits tab and it's like, here's all the restaurants that you can get discounts from. Here are all the stores because you own this thing. Like, it's going to be overwhelming, right? It's going to be curation is going to be a hard part here because everyone's going to be like, oh, wait, I'm Denny's. I will literally give a discount to every community that exists because why wouldn't I want to be in the app, right? So, yeah,
absolutely.
um, yeah.
I've said
Uh,
for a while that we're on the brink of like the greatest like permissionless brand era that there's ever been, like the best era of like brand collaboration. Like I come from the marketing world, agency world, so it's like trying to get another brand to do something with yours is like a freaking mess for anything.
yeah.
Like you're filming a commercial and somebody happens to be wearing the wrong shirt and you're totally screwed. So it's just like I'm so excited for that kind of stuff to be way more seamless because I think it's going to be massive and really great
Yeah.
for the consumers. So,
Yeah.
um, Brenden, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks so much for making
Yeah.
time.
Thanks for having me. All right. Take care.
That is going to do it for us today, folks. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week on another great episode of First Mint.